Have you checked the children? You're a little mad sometimes.
Hi, I'm Chucky. Wanna play?
Sometimes that is better.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
Hi everybody, welcome back to the horror show. I'm Marcia Parker.
Got Jaime Fuego here, and we are fulfilling John Fairley's request here on Patreon for John and the Hole, losing my soul. Anyway,
Waiting for my bread and cheese.
and for being alone at my home as my family is down in a hole.
Oh my gosh, so this is like one of my worst nightmares. I mean, as you all, I don't know.
And I
if you
hinted at
follow
this
us-
in the group chat with you, and you know,
Yeah.
you misunderstood, but yet I'm hoping that when you finally watched it, you understood what I was kind of hinting at.
I mean, okay, so I have this weird, like, fear that I'm going to end up dying by the hands of my children or they're going to torment me. So, like, when I
So
watch
I struck a
this,
nerve even more so than I was anticipating.
yeah, and then I watch this and I'm all like, oh my god, this is horrible. This is so scary. Like, I could, I feel like this would happen to me.
Yeah, this movie was something else. So this
Just
actually,
saying.
yeah, this made its premiere at Sundance earlier this year, back in January, and I had some screening stuff for Sundance and an allotment of stuff to watch, and it was one that I pushed by the wayside, and I'm kind of regretful that I did, because this movie, while it's not like one of my favorites of the year or anything, it's just very profound in what it decided to do, and it says a lot about entitled children and the fact that there's kind of like a boredom maybe, and they're like, I need to like spice things up a little bit. What can I do? How can I rebel? How can I make my life more interesting when I have a silver spoon and everything is like all perfect for me? And it's like, oh, well, I'll throw my family in a hole and then just home alone that shit back at the house, and everything that kind of happens thereafter as far as him trying to keep the secret covered up.
Yeah.
And performances I thought were great from this, and I guess we are kind of doing the typical horror show thing, overall impressions. That, once again, I didn't love this movie, but I found it kind of startling as far as subject matter and approach, and all the performances were good. Michael C. Hall, Dexter himself, as Marcia mentioned, Taissa Farmiga, the younger sister of Vera from the Conjuring franchise, and Taissa is great, whether it's Final Girls or the couple seasons of American Horror Story that she's been in, 3, if I'm not mistaken at this point, because she was in the Bitchcraft one, The Coven, she was in Murder House, and then she was in the Apocalypse one too, right, where they crossed them over.
Yeah,
so,
she wasn't in Asylum or Roanoke or anything, was she?
I don't think so. I don't think so. Yeah.
And she wasn't in.
Yeah, it was Robbie who was in just about all of the other ones.
Yep.
But in any event, yeah. So
Sorry.
you have a stellar crew of actors involved in this, and what a kind of, it's not full on horror, but it's definitely thriller, drama, crazy scenario.
I don't know. I thought it was horror.
Pretty much.
It scared me.
It scared me too,
It's
and I'm not even a parent. So.
I mean, the fact that, like, oh my god. Okay, so.
Yes, lay it on 'em.
Okay, so like from the beginning, it's super slow movie. I mean, you really have to
slow burn for sure.
Yeah, you really just have to watch it, and just know that it is going to be slow. It's low action.
But that says a lot, because I know you're rather critical of slow burns.
Yeah,
sometimes.
I really don't like slow burns, but I'm like good in this, and I knew this because they introduced a family, and there is obviously something wrong with this kid right off the bat. I'm like, great, awesome, and then you realize like all of a sudden he's like talking about a hole and how like what's going on with this hole, why does it exist, and they like tell him, and then he gets kind of quiet, like, and you're like, okay, great.
Gears are turning.
Then next thing you know, you see him pulling, like watching his sister, watching his parents, and then all of a sudden you're seeing he's pulling bodies and sheets, and I'm like, oh my gosh, no! And like, so he like drugs his whole family and throws them in this hole, and then like he doesn't kill them; they stay alive, but he brings them like food and stuff, which I mean, I get they were hungry and that's why they ate it, but I would be so terrified to eat it. I would be like, I hope this wine is good, because if it's the last one, I would be really sad if it was like $3 Chuck. So anyways, but then he goes on,
it's
and
like I made gnocchis.
Yeah, like, and like Jaime says, he just like, lives his life with his family in a hole and like trying to like make sure he doesn't get in trouble or have anybody find out.
Invites his friend over from out of town,
Yeah.
and the game they were playing in the pool where they were like trying to drown each other and get that close to death from oxygen deprivation. Like, this is obviously a kid with some severe mental problems, and I think it was probably
Too much
because
coddling.
of it. Yes, that was the exact term I was going to use, dude. It was like sometimes if everything comes so easily, like a kid is. It's not even complacence, it's boredom, and so you have to do something really drastic and crazy. And the fact that he's this tennis player, but you don't even necessarily know how into that he is. He seems more into playing video game tennis than he is actually playing tennis himself. And and once again, the Home Alone factor, he's eating all the junk food, and the friend comes from out of town. He's driving around the family vehicle, and yet
no reason to do this to his family
Yeah.
whatsoever. He
Yeah.
was very much loved, very well taken care of.
Indeed. Like, these are not abusive
This is
parents. They're not even
terrifying.
neglectful parents, you know?
Terrifying me.
Yeah.
Terrifying me. I'm
And-
like, it doesn't matter what I do, they're gonna still throw me in a hole.
Yeah, and this is and this is where, without spoiling things, the biggest thing that I wanted to propose to you, because like right after I got done watching this movie, I was pissed off because there is kind of a lack of consequence within this movie, and that just made my blood boil. And I'm not even a parent, but that's not specifying outcome, but just the way things kind of and play out in this movie. And I know it was kind of very deliberate in the writing for that to be the case. And I've seen, because what I like to do is after I've watched something, I'll read a few reviews and just get some opinions different than my own. And this is a very polarizing film amongst critics. There were people who praised it, and then there were other people who were echoing my sentiments right now that were just like, yeah, the film doesn't really resolve itself the way that you feel that it should, perhaps, and yet, you know, it was a very heavy-handed decision in that regard. So I don't know, that's where it's tough to separate whether it's cathartic writing versus how you feel like it should have ended, whether, you know, in comparison with the way that it did. I don't know, but that shit pissed me off, dude.
Yeah.
It really did.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree. Like, there's got to be consequences, and when you don't get that, I mean, at the same time, like, it's a little life, kind of lifey, right? It's kind of like real life. There's not always consequences in your actions, and even when there definitely should be. And I guess that's the point. Like,
some people are let off the hook, so to speak,
because it's still their baby.
It's back to the intent. Yeah, and that's where, like, if there's anybody that you're probably going to be more forgiving of than anyone, is family. And yet, another thing that just occurred to me that I had forgotten about. So there is a segue that happens a couple times in this film to the fact that there's a mother telling the story of John in the hole to her daughter, and it's almost like a tough love sort of situation. It's almost like the antithesis of what we get from John and his family and what goes down. And this mother who was telling the story of John to her daughter, it's very much a tough love, like, I'm not gonna always be there to coddle you and to whatever. I don't know how well those segues worked, and they weren't explained particularly well.
That was weird.
They felt
I actually forgot about it.
Yeah, they felt out of place to me, and I don't really know what purpose they served. I'm grasping at straws trying to ruminate about it at this point, because it's been a few months since I watched this, but I just remembered those scenes and how weird and just out of place and disjointed they kind of felt. I felt like they were unnecessary, personally, but yeah, as a whole, you know, since this isn't a gory movie, the home that this kid lives in, lavish and beautiful, so it's well shot. Cinematography, you know, for what we get, is great. A lot of the camera selection as far as viewpoint between, you know, John looking down at his family when he does occasionally visit them, the grimy grossness of them being down there and everything, and
kind of the hysteria they experience together,
or at times the lack thereof. The fact that they seem so calm and composed a lot of the time. I don't know. They're so certain that John is eventually going to help them, whether he does or not. You know, we're not trying to spoil things, but as a whole, while I didn't love this movie, I found it a fascinating character study. Honestly,
yeah, and that's a good way to describe it. Definitely was a character study. It just scares me because it's just obviously like how
Worst nightmare.
terrifying it is that you get drugged by your own children, and then all of a
Yeah.
sudden you wake up and you're like, you know, hostage, and there's nothing you can do about it. There's no way out, and it's just
And even worse when you've shown nothing but love from what we are shown in the film.
Yeah.
And then this is how you're repaid. You're just like, what the hell? Like,
No, that kid
what
would-
did I do
I
wrong?
would be, as soon as I got out, that kid would be somewhere else
Mhm.
forever. Like, nowhere near me.
It's like, I'm putting you in a hole, kid.
Sorry.
See how you like it. No tennis lessons, sucker.
No more tennis lessons for you.
Yeah.
Straight to therapy.
Yeah,
and this
no more
jacket and
piles
this
of
room.
whoppers and video
Like,
games.
pad your room up and lock the door. Here's your
Seriously.
porridge. Like,
Yeah.
yikes.
Yeah,
Anyway,
so
yeah.
John Farrelly, that is our thoughts on a film
Thank
that
you for
had
that.
been on my radar at least since January,
Mm-hmm.
and it received a VOD release maybe a month or two ago, something like that. That's when Marcia and I got the chance to watch it. But
Yep.
yes, if you guys are checking out this review, whether on YouTube or here on the Patreon, let us know if you thought this was absolute ridiculousness or if it had those deeper merits that we found to at least a degree in various portions of stuff that
Yeah.
it explored here. So, yes, thanks so much once again. If you want to be a patron, we've got all the info below, reviews, commentaries, boogie boxes, all that rad status stuff. But until next time, Freight fans, I've been Jaime Fuego,
And I'm Marcia Parker.
and we are finally done for the reviews for the day. Halle Berry, hallelujah. So until next time, Freight fans, remember, stay scared.